without any further introduction, I am going to bring a very special guest this morning. Somebody who I'm also personally a big fan of. So I am not going to introduce him. I'm going to let Paul Pfanner bring our guest. I see his name popping up. Then all of us will disappear. And then, good morning, sir.
Good morning. Bonjour, as I say.
Yeah. Bonjour, Bobby.
Good morning.
Good morning, Judy.
You are on. Paul will see you in 50 minutes. Enjoy.
Good morning, Robert Woodward Rahal. How are you?
I'm good. How about you, PP?
Yeah, thank you. We've known each other for a few weeks.
Yeah, for a few.
I was telling everybody, Bobby, when I first met you, you had just stepped out of the race car at the Road Atlanta in 1974 when you were driving your dad's B Sports Racing Lola, which I love that race car, by the way. Yeah. And you drove a hell of a race, and I wanted to know you. I thought this is, and we're roughly the same age, and you had really long hair then. I guess you just changed your hairstyle.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. The other day, there was a picture of all my fraternity brothers and myself in front of our house during the day in like maybe 1973. And I showed my kids my picture and they couldn't believe it. That's not you. And because I had long hair and
yeah.
As most people did in 1973. So anyway, yeah, it's been a long trip for sure.
And then, when I can't help it. I still think of you that way. You in a race car when you were at that young age was spectacular. You were someone I followed and believed in and felt inevitability in your success. You just were really talented. You with your head down, head leaned forward, driving a Ralt in Formula Atlantic was one of the most exciting things for a March. You really looked the business and a lot of sideways, a lot of just, head down, go fast as you can. And Charger, and that Charger has charged forward and done so many things in this sport that did you have any vision that it would turn out this way?
No, I mean, when I, unlike maybe an Andretti or an Unser, where racing really was the family business. And in my case, it was, that was the food business, was the family business. And that didn't hold much attraction to me. Very fortunate that, number one, that my father raced as a hobby all through the late 50s, 60s, very early 70s. And of course, growing up as a kid, I had lots of dreams. I had lots of ambition, but there wasn't a lot of expectation there. And because how do you really know until you start? And I never thought I'd win the Indy 500. I never thought I'd win 3 IndyCar championships, Daytona, Sebring, all these great events. All I did was try to do my best every day, and whether it was on the track or off the track, and it kind of all happened. I was very fortunate to have around me great people. Jim Truman, who did so much for me, even during the Atlantic days, but more particularly during IndyCar. People like that having good crews, great crews, good mechanics. When you look back, it really is pretty fickle, how some people make it and how some people don't, because there were a lot of talented people in Formula Atlantic in 1975 and 76 and 7, Gilles Villeneuve, Keke Rosberg, myself, guys like Tom Gloy, Danny Sullivan. The list, I'm missing more than a few people. There was a lot of very competitive young guys, and yet less than a handful really make it. So, when you start, to me, it was all about just making the most of every day and then seeing what happens.
And you did that and more. I've got to say that there was something about you when you were really the exciting one to watch. You and Gilles Villeneuve, there was a lot of action going on whenever you raced. And I think that, one of the things I want everyone to understand, this wasn't an easy, smooth road. You fought and raced successfully at a hobby level, but he really was a good race car driver. And but you got to a point in your career where you ascended to Formula One, you drove in Europe, and did you end up working in an ad agency?
Well, yeah. As I was just saying, it's kind of fickle how you make it or don't make it. in 1975, for example, in Formula Atlantic, that was my rookie year. I was, kind of one of the top guys. We didn't have a great year. We had a lot of mechanical issues, but had some good races, and more often than not beat Gilles Villeneuve. And then we go into 76. And of course, I'm expecting that we're going to go from strength to strength. And Gilles was driving against me in a competitive team, and he had a phenomenal year, and I had a horrible year. And really, by the end of 76, I kind of seen a lot of drivers kind of go into every year. Oh, this will be the year. This will be the year. This will be the year. And I just wasn't going to waste I didn't want to waste my life, my time chasing, this dream that maybe would happen, maybe it wouldn't. So I retired in 1976 at 23 years old.
Yeah.
And I went to work for Young and Rubicam, big ad agency. I think it was either the largest or the second largest at the time. And then fortunately, my girlfriend at the time and my mechanic, a guy named Wiley McCoy, who then went on to McLaren USA still is there actually. They convinced me that was that I should really give it a proper effort, and so off we went. But yeah, I mean, it was. I had I guess after 75, I had such strong expectations, and they're probably unrealistic because everything had been relatively smooth up to that point. And I was to find out later on that one year's a good year, you might have a bad year, then maybe a good year. I mean, 1 minute everybody wants you, and 1 minute nobody wants to know you. And that's kind of, when you're coming up through the ranks, that's kind of the way it is.
Well, that's exactly it. And I think we've all learned that if you've been around the business long enough. In my case, I'm with the media. Mostly they don't want to know you. So, but I think the thing that really stands out about me is, you are determined and resilient. Watching you come back race after race, when you're relentless when you're in a race car. You're smart too when you're in a race car. I see the same thing in your business, and I want to jump off on a business track just for a few minutes, because I want people to understand that racing is a springboard to greater things if you build a personal brand. And you did a good job of doing that, Bobby. And you want to tell us about the other business interests you now have and what you're doing beyond racing, just so people get a sense of what you built from this.
I'd be happy to. I'm not the originator of this by any means. I think you probably have to say Roger Penske was the first guy to really take what he did in racing and the connections. Of course, Roger's got an unbelievable work ethic. I think we all know that. But he took what he had done in racing, which at the time was still pretty much an amateur sport. But he took that and then really used that to build what exists today, which is unbelievable. But I saw him as really kind of he was the example. There were others. Parnelli Jones did very well. Guys who really looked at it they recognized, I would say, that racing is you're only there for so long. I mean, even if you have a super successful career, by the time you're 40, you're not even halfway through your life, maybe you're kind of done, with this thing that you've had such a passion for. And it's, what have you done to prepare for that? So in the late 80s, I was introduced to people at Honda. I was living in Columbus, Ohio at the time, and met the president of Honda, what they call HAM, Honda of America Manufacturing, a fabulous guy named Ira Majiri. And Mr. Erie was sort of Mr. Motorcycle. He was the guy that was, he was from Honda R&D, brilliant man, but he was all about motorcycle engines and racing engines. And of course, this is the time of Freddie Spencer and Eddie Lawson and guys like that. And anyway, got to meet the Honda people and expressed my interest in getting into the car business. I'd worked in a car dealership in between my years in college. That kind of seemed to be an automatic, frankly, for me. And so met people, and I went to a fellow in Chicago area where I lived at the time and said, hey, here's an offer, you go run this place, and, I'll put the money up and we'll go from there. And frankly, we had pretty humble aspirations. We thought that was it. We became a Honda dealer. near Harrisburg, PA, and Mechanicsburg. They called Bobby Rahal Honda. That was the start, and kind of thought that was going to be the end of it. And yet that was 32 years ago, which is hard to believe. And thank God, because we've been over the years, we've expanded our dealerships, and we're in the top 110 of U.S. dealerships in terms of volume and profitability and what have you. So yeah, it's been a heck of a ride on that front. So I was able to really take what I had done in racing, as Roger did, and kind of expand upon that and really make a second career out of that. And that, of course, allowed me to then get involved in racing teams, because when I was racing, about the last thing I had any interest in doing was being a team owner. And that idea changed as I got closer to what I considered my retirement age of 40. Of course, I retired at 45, but I had been in the car business for 5 years by that time. So, it's just kind of one thing led to the other. And really, it's if I have to say anything, I think that I've been very fortunate to surround myself with really good people. And in the end, I think anybody who is successful understands that role, that so many people have so much to do with your success. And so I've been very, very fortunate in that respect.
Yes, you've had some amazing people working for you. I've got to say, some of the people I respect most in the business, and the spirit of your team is you can, it reflects you and your character and your fighting spirit. And we're going to talk about the year you've had in a few minutes, because you haven't had a bad year.
Yeah, no, pretty good year.
Pretty good year.
Despite everything, yeah. Yeah,
despite everything. But I think that, we're on the theme of kind of the diversification. I just wanted people to understand there's more to you than the racing businesses. I think people think of you as the racing team and the racing history, but you're a smart guy. I've always been impressed with how thoughtful you are, and you give back to the sport. You're not taking from the sport. I know you're a capitalist like I am. We got to be to stay in business, but you give back. And I want to, I'm front loading to this with some things I don't think everybody knows about you. You're involved as the president of the Road Racing Drivers Club, and you've transformed that organization. And you're doing good things for young people in motorsports. You want to talk about that for a little bit, because you really changed it up there.
Yeah, I'm trying to do good things. I mean, the RRDC, Road Racing Drivers Club, when I was beginning racing, of course, I'd always seen the symbol of the steering wheel, which is the symbol of the club, on Mark Donahue's helmet, and Roger Penske's been a very, very long time member. And I mean, the best of the best had that steering wheel on their uniform or on their helmet. And I remember I was inducted into the club in 1981, I believe it was, and I just felt like, wow, that to me was a real achievement, because if you looked at the membership at the time, it was the best of the best, as I said. So, always supported it. It was a club that was started in the early 50s to really expand upon the safety of circuits. And they used to have driving schools. I mean, in the 60s, you could have Mark Donahue as your driving instructor, pretty amazing stuff. Or Rob Linsky, or all kinds of guys, so when I was always a faithful, loyal member of that club, because it just meant so much to me. And then in about 2005, I think it was, 2002, I believe, Bob Aiken, God rest his soul, and Brian Redmond, who is a real hero of mine, they cornered me and suggested that I should become the president of the RRDC. And of course, I was flattered. And off we went. That sounds like a big, at the time, it sounded like a big position. I mean, it is. We've really grown the club collectively, again, not just me, there's a lot of people involved. But having events like the Legends Dinner prior to the Long Beach Grand Prix has really become kind of a must-do event on that weekend. In April, we do the same thing at Daytona. We've done a lot to try to promote the club itself, but also to bring into effect some, whether it's Team USA and our assistance in helping send 2 young Americans over to England to do the Formula Ford Trophy and the Walter Hayes Trophy. the Formula Ford Festival, I should say, and which is a huge event. Both of them are huge events. A lot of great drivers have done that. Jimmy Vasser has done that for us. Brian Herta, Newgarden, Joseph Newgarden represented us as part of our team a number of years ago, and so we've tried to help push that along. Of course, our Safest Fast program, which is an online program, originally it was meant just for karters, for young drivers, for us to explain to people, these young people, what the expectations are, how you should approach it, all the facets of becoming a racing car driver. And it was quite good, but really doing it personally was tough. And then a couple of the members took it upon themselves to make this an online tutorial system, groupings of tutorials. And it's phenomenal, the impact that it's had around the world, not just here in the United States. And I mean, we get people from Afghanistan going online to watch some of the tutorials that are available, and some of the last places on earth you'd think they'd be interested in motorsports, and yet you see it. So it's been that to me is the Safest Fast program has been a real plus, and really has, to me, been a great halo for the RRDC, because there truly is something that can provide a lot of value to people who want to succeed in racing at whatever level, and maybe for those who want to go on and make it a profession.
Well, again, very commendable that you've done the things you just mentioned. And you know what, I'm proud that I was there in the beginning to help Jeremy launch the Team USA. I was only there in the beginning, raising the initial sponsorship for the first few years. Jeremy carried it forward and found your support invaluable in blooming this and making it a much bigger deal. And
it's amazing. There's a number of RRDC members that the RRDC provides some support to Jeremy. This is Jeremy Shaw, this is his program, which is, I think, over 20 years old now. But a lot of RRDC members support it, whether you're privately or through their companies. And so it's really been a great association for us.
And I think it reflects too it's the young you remembering where you came from, which I think is really, that heartens me. I again, you give back, Bobby, and you think about these things, and the things you've just talked about are exactly that. And it's a lesson to the rest of us in this sport to remember where we came from and repay those that helped us along the way. Jim Truman was an inspiring man, a great man. And I was fortunate to know. And your victory in 1986 is one of my strongest memories of the Indy 500. It was very emotional.
It was.
And it really was. And you had the restart of the gods.
Yeah. Maybe. let's just say this: I was ready.
You were ready, and you've been ready for opportunity throughout the time I've known you. You've taken you've taken some risks. I mean, your first year with Honda was really problematic. I mean, you with the True Sports, the chassis that you took forward with the team in '93, I think it was, after you won the championship the year before. You'll take risk. You'll take risk on people. You'll take risk on things. But you're a racer. But you center up and always find a way forward. And there's a symmetry to our lives. That was my first trip to the runoffs, one of my very first trips away when I met you to race. We launched Racer in '92. You win the championship. I remember thinking that was a sign from the heavens that this is going to work out, and watching you accept that championship as a team owner driver that year was really special. Yeah. And, did you see this being, I'm going to do this for a while. I'm going to operate this team afterward, or did you just think I'm going to do this as long as I'm racing? I have to ask you that question.
Well, as I said earlier, I never envisioned being a team owner. But as I got close to, my 40s, when I was 38, 39, I started thinking about it more often because I had seen some drivers, some great drivers, become a little embittered, and some not so little, a lot of embitterment about where they felt they were being retired before their time was due. And I won't name names, but I just thought, my God, how here you invest 20 years of your life. Oops, excuse me. You invest 20 years of your life in this, chasing this passion, and you're successful, and then all of a sudden you begin to hate it because of what's happened to you towards the end of it. And I just thought, I just thought that was horrible. So, as I got closer to my 40th birthday, I thought, maybe this is something we should think about. Of course, again, being in the right place, right time, having great people around you. I was introduced to a fellow named Dick Strupp from Miller Brewing Company. He was the head of marketing.
Yeah.
And Miller hadn't had, the last several years for them hadn't been so good. And, he asked if I'd be willing to do this and start this team and what have you. And so it took about 6 months for it to all be put together, but all the pieces fell in place. And next thing you know, I'm a co-owner. Carl Hogan was my partner at the time. And all of a sudden I was a co-owner. And of course, 91, we were formed. Our Rahal Hogan was formed in the fall of 91. And, 92 is our first season. And of course, everybody's saying, well, you can't be a successful driver and be a winner in this day and age. Maybe you could have done that before. I don't know if I use that for a motivation, but it sure was nice to win everything and then kind of stick your tongue out at everybody.
Yeah, you did too.
You can do it. And,
and it was something to see you pull that off, Bobby.
Yeah, it was very satisfying. I mean, every championship is satisfying, obviously, but that one was special. Yeah,
and I think that showed the full spectrum of what you're capable of. That had to be a moment where you'll realize, I can do a hell of a lot more than I'm doing here. There's something, and you had ambition to keep going and do other things. And, I think that there were ups and downs over the next few years, but you were a competitive racing driver to the very end of your career. And
I think so.
And, we've known each other, so I can joke with you. And I think we ran into each other in the lobby the night after your last race and all the big buildup. And, they had floats and tributes and jets and blimps and, they had wax figures of you. And it was just amazing. They really thought, you were being deified. So I'm there to bring you down to earth.
I don't know.
I think that's somebody calling you about your car warranty.
I apologize. Bear with me.
Your car warranty's expiring. You better take care of it.
Bear with me. Oh my goodness. I don't know what's going on here. I'm sorry. I apologize. Hang on.
Okay.
Let's see. I'm joining a meeting. Oh, I gotta join.
You're there. We see you.
Can you see me? Good, because I can't see
you. Didn't disappear.
As long as you can see me, that's all that counts.
Well, no one wants to see me, Bobby. So you just keep going.
Okay.
But you walked into the lobby of the Century Plaza Hotel the night of your last race, and I'm there to bring you down. And I said to you as you were checking in, "Welcome to the world of has-beens."
Yeah. Yeah. Well. Yeah. I remember you said that to me so well, and then of course Rick Mears said, "Welcome to the other side of the wall." The pit wall, right? So now you're where all the crew is, and it was just a tremendous. It was the right time. It was the right time for me, and I was 45 years old, and how many more years are going to do it? I'm racing against guys that were like old enough to be my kids. Yeah. So, it was, and they're old enough to take, or they're young enough to take a lot more risk than us, us old guys. So, it was the right time. And I had to look back at the time, and I achieved far more than I ever thought or dreamed, frankly. And so I just had to be pretty happy with where I was at the time.
And I'm glad you took that view. I know this is a very dangerous business. I've lost some of my closest friends in this business to accidents, and I was thrilled you were retiring. I don't want to see anything happen to you. You're a treasure, and the things you've done since. you know, you had a very Dan Gurney-like sensibility about you. I know we both admired Dan very much, and, and that was a sense of relief I had. You know, we know each other, so I make a little bit of fun of you, but at the same time, I never thought that you weren't going to go on and do great things. I just didn't realize you were going to do all the great things that you've done. I mean, you had a pretty interesting post driving career. You for 6 months, you were the acting CEO of CART, which I thought was pretty
for
interesting.
better or for worse.
Yes, and you went to Formula One there for a bit to work with the Jaguar team. And, you know, and I thought it was appropriate that our journeys have been intertwined. I sell the majority of my company to Haymarket. I arrive in the UK like 2 days later to go to the Autosport show, and who's there to meet me in the bar with myself and you and John Chambers. And
that's right.
And I'm glad you didn't say welcome to the world of has-beens to me. But what
I've never looked at you as a has-been, Paul. I mean, I remember the days of Formula Magazine. I remember the day, obviously, Racer.
But thank you.
I lived to get that magazine, as I do Racer even today. And you know, I think there've been there's one big thing that has driven me, I think, in whatever I've done, is just as in racing. You know, when I drove, I was there to win. I wasn't there to participate or to be part of a scene, or you know, you're either there to win or why bother? I mean, there's so much. The amount of effort that it takes, whether it's as a driver or as an owner, is such that, you know, I can't imagine doing it, you know, and not going into every race thinking you had a chance to win, or that you were in a good position to win. And of course, you don't win every time, but every race you find something of value that comes out of it that you can use at the next race or the following races. And for me, and once I retired, whether it's in the car dealerships or, as my poor wife will tell you, I'm not the kind to sit on the beach. I'm not the kind to sit there and read a book. I'm the kind, I have to be out doing something. And you know, I've been for, you know, even the things like, and sometimes I think my passion for the sport got in the way of maybe some rational thought, because I did take on for a brief period of time the interim chairman of CART. I was never intending to do that for a long period of time, but of course that opened up all kinds of interesting experiences and stories. You know, I went to Jaguar. You know, some people probably thought I was crazy. I went there because Ford asked me to go there. A guy named Neil Ressler, who was head of Ford engineering, and really the all of racing really reported to Neil eventually. You know, and I actually enjoyed it. I wish it had been longer at the time, because I think we were making good progress. But nevertheless, I wouldn't trade those experiences for anything. And I think oftentimes that you know, those decisions to go those ways, whether it's in CART interim chairman or whatever, a lot of it was based on the passion that I have for the sport. And it is, you know, it's a business, but dig down beneath, it's still a sport. And that's to me, that's what motivated me. And that's even true today. I mean, what motivates me today is to have one of the best teams out there and to go into every race with as good a chance of winning as anybody else.
Well, that's a perfect segue to what I want to talk about next. This amazing race team. You know, I'm a fan of your race team, and the people in it. And you're a dangerous bunch. You're out there to win. And I've seen some really savvy calls, like some of the things you've done in IMSA have just been brilliant. Just strategy calls to win some of these races. And I got to tell you, this Indy 500 this year, Bobby, we're going to talk about it for a minute, but I literally, the hair on my arms stand up when I think about Takuma Sato there this year. That was the ultimate gunfight between he is up there now as one of the very best drivers in IndyCar racing. He's proven it. And he beat what was arguably the best driver of this era and one of the very best teams on one of their very best days. Your team beat them with a driver that delivered a performance of a lifetime.
Right. Well, I mean, you look at Takuma's record last 3 years, it's win, third win. That's pretty good. Not many guys racing the 500 have had that kind of run. But no, Takuma, the team, of course, as a team, we were very competitive this year. Graham ended up third, right on, was running right on Dixon's tail. Spencer Pigot was having a decent race and unfortunately had that accident, but we had 3 cars in the top 11 in qualifying. That's not too shabby. And even though we really never put that much emphasis on qualifying per se, we look for race cars. And I think obviously you saw the value in that approach come race day, because Takuma was up front the whole time. Graham had dropped back a bit. They made a few adjustments and then he drove through the field. So, I think the approach that we've taken, we take on that, and during that month of May in particular, has worked out a number of times. We don't always hit it out of the park, but this year I think you could say we hit it out of the park, and that's, again, it comes down to great people, great engineering, great mechanics. The pit stops really strong, the this or that, everything has to work. And Takuma and his team, well, the whole team in general, just really worked hard to get the kind of result that we had, and gives you obviously a tremendous amount of satisfaction. For me, people always ask me what's the difference in winning the 500 as a driver versus an owner. And I always tell people, I think as an owner, you truly appreciate just what goes into it.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of moving pieces that go into it. And only as an owner can you really know that and understand that. And so, this year's 500 was super satisfying for me personally and for the team, and particularly for me from my partners, David and Mike Lanigan. Mike had been a longtime supporter in racing, sponsor, co-owner of teams. This is his dream. I think he was there 30 years, and we were able to deliver that dream to him this year. And obviously that was very, very satisfying.
It had to be, Bobby. And I was elated. I mean, I a lot of times my heart rides too with Mike Hull and the Target team. Mike was, my mentor and brought me along in racing, and Chip's one of my longest standing friendships. And I admire Roger and his team, but there's something special about your team in my mind. And I know where you came from, and I know what you've done to build the team. And it was absolutely thrilling. And our audience at racer.com went, crazy over this. I mean, we had more traffic this year in August than we did in May 2019. We had 462,000 shares of content, and the majority of that was around this Indy 500 win. And the grandstands were empty, but the real race fans that love the Indy 500 were absolutely engaged and excited about what happened.
Yeah, well, I think what made it, obviously it was kind of strange. There you are, and there's nobody, and it's just gray. That place looks like a battleship. Everything's gray, navy gray, and yet, of course, most 500s is nothing but colors. Now there was nobody there, and yet that really didn't affect the race. Was the race, and I thought one of the great things that I just loved seeing it was there's that gap in the short chute between turn 1 and 2, and across the street here there are a couple hundred people, maybe 1,000 people with lawn chairs. They had their TVs going. They can walk. They could see through this gap. I don't know if you could see the cars, but you could hear them.
Yeah.
And that to me just said it all. That's just what makes this race so great. That race so great. The 500. The passion that people have for it, and it's a generational passion. It's not one generation. It runs for multiple generations, and that's just what makes that race so special. So that was pretty satisfying to me, to not just win that race, but then to go outside and see the level of commitment that our fans had towards that race.
They do, and you've been central to some of the most memorable Indy 500s in history, in my mind. Like I said, your win with Jim Truman is a testament to the human spirit ultimately. And God rest his soul. What a magnificent man. He helped you find your dream here.
And he did. I mean, Jim was, as I tell people, he was like a father. He was like a brother. He was like a friend. He was a sponsor. He was a advisor. I mean, Jim fulfilled a lot of roles and represented, I should say, a lot of roles for me prior to our working together when I was in SCCA racing. Even when I was in Europe racing Formula 3 and Formula 2, he was helping. But then to put the team together with Steve Horn and Jim, obviously that took it to a higher level. And you know, it's interesting. Doug Shearson, who is a guy that I drove for in Formula Atlantic,
was a friend of mine as well.
He was a good friend of ours, a good friend of Jim's. After the race, he said to me, he goes, you know, the other 32 of us never knew we didn't stand a chance. You know, that given Jim's condition, the good Lord was going to make sure that we won that day. And I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I'll take it. And yeah, it was a very emotional, very satisfying moment for all of us not just those on the team, but people who knew Jim, people who followed him and followed the racing. I mean, it was a pretty magical moment.
It defines what the Indianapolis 500 is about. And I think that with that, you know, I want to segue, got a few more things to cover here, but maybe the greatest moment of, you know, energy I've ever seen at the Indy 500 was when a girl named Danica took the lead of the Indianapolis 500 near the closing stages of the race, driving for you.
Yeah,
and
that was crazy.
That was more than crazy. I felt the world change a little bit when
passing Dan Weldon.
Yeah.
I mean, I tell people, those who were there, no, I mean, the whole place went up for grabs when she passed him. You know, I mean, you just couldn't imagine. I mean, it was just, she did what she had to do. You know, Scott Remke was calling a great race for us. You know, it was, I mean, she did a great job that whole month. And of course, you know, we got a little lucky in the race. You know, she kind of spun and two other fellows got taken out as a result, but nevertheless kept it off pretty much kept it off the wall, came back and we're in a position to win the race. And yeah, I mean, I'll never forget that May. Of course, you know, we'd been to Japan already. She, I think, qualified either on pole or the front row in Japan, led the race. You know, and Danica was not short of guts and courage. You know, always had that. And as that race progressed, I mean, you could just feel the you know, I mean, she was being willed along by all those people watching there as spectators and probably on TV. And I think that TV rating is still the highest TV rating, you know, maybe since the early 80s or mid 80s or something. And
the last laps really soared on rating. I remember that.
Yeah, it's just crazy. So, you know, but that was, you know, that was, you were talking a little bit earlier, that was kind of a little bit of my payback to Jim Truman, you know, you know, he always gave a lot of people, it wasn't just me in racing, he gave a lot of people, you know, Ed Pym, Vern Schickman, he sponsored at Indy in '81. They ended up third in old McLaren. I mean, he sponsored a lot of young people, most of them in racing, but others in other sports. And, you know, so that was a strong lesson for me. And so whether it was Buddy Rice or whether it was Danica or whether, you know, I mean, there's been a number of them. You know, we put Spencer Piggott in a car a few years ago.
Great choice.
You know, I just think it's something that, you know, that I think it's something we'll always do. I think we'll always have a young person in there because, you know, at some point you got to give somebody a chance. Jim gave me my chance. There aren't many team owners out there that do. And, you know, boy, when you strike gold, it sure is fun.
It is. And you know, one thing I like about when we talk, you ask me about people and things, and that we catch up on every now and again. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think one of the things it's many times it comes down to young talent. We got together last year, I think it was in your hospitality area at IndyCar race after,
Mhm.
earlier in the year, I'd been observing a young woman coming up through the ranks who I really thought was brilliantly talented. Her name is Courtney Crone. And
Mhm.
this is a girl that will tell you she wants to be the first female face on the Borg Warner Trophy.
Oh, there you
And,
go.
she's raced 360 non-wing sprint cars and won. She's raced midgets. She's raced Formula Speed Mazda, Formula 4. She's done all these things. She's really talented. She's one of many
Right.
young women coming up. And you noticed her and asked me about her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you just like, are you tuned in to all these young talents coming up? Are you watching them, or do you just have something in you that you see something and it registers,
I think it's no. Do I know everybody out there? No, but people like yourself say, "Oh, you should check this person out." Of course,
Is it part of this
get.
from the program with Jeremy, or do you just have an awareness?
Well, some comes from Jeremy for sure. I mean, Jeremy and the group that decides who goes to the to England, they're pretty good judges of. And it's not just talent on the racetrack; it's talent off the track. It's sponsor. You've got to. It's not just about driving. Making it to the top. You got to be good at all of it. And so Jeremy and his the staff, the group. I think it's 4 or 5 people. Basically, they're the ones who do the testing. They're the ones who are really looking around, seeing who can fulfill that role. And they've been pretty. I mean, if you look at their the record of the drivers that they've taken to England, it's pretty impressive. And some are maybe in open wheel, some are in closed wheel, in sports car racing. As I said, they've been quite good at it. Jeremy alerts me to some people. I've always enjoyed watching the junior categories race because you really, it's interesting. But to me, it's all about attitude. And when you meet people, what I mean by attitude is not whether you got a good attitude or a bad attitude. It's about desire. It's about hunger. It's about commitment. And you can tell that when you speak with people. That's what, to be frank, that's what attracted me to Danica, because I mean, there was no question. I mean, she was a fighter, and you could tell the way she shook your hand. Her handshake, I don't know if it's still the same today, but her handshake was stronger than most men that I know. And that just kind of, I always told her that was her calling card. That was her handshake was, everybody's going to remember you because of that handshake. They may forget your name, but they're going to say, oh yeah, I met this little tiny little girl that, about broke my hand shaking it. But it's about attitude. And so that's what we look for. And even there's a lot of drivers out there who are very experienced, who've been successful in other categories. And even there, you're looking for that special person who just doesn't want to be beaten, just can't take the possibility of being beaten. That's what you need.
Well, that was you when I met you.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I admire most is your will and your commitment and the people you recommend. You mentioned Scott earlier, who I just thought was an amazing guy, and he was the soul of your team.
Yes.
And you just have had a string of people that reflect your quality as a person, working within your team, and will to win. I think that you're giving a little bit of advice here, and I before we jump to that, I want to have a closing thought be about more advice to young racers. But you have delivered some real success to BMW along the way here too. Sports cars, and I know sports cars are near and dear to your heart. And there's been a reduction in scale on the program, but you're carrying forward with them. Just tell us a little bit about this year in sports cars, and because you're a cagey bunch, and you managed to do some good stuff this year with what looks to be the biggest car.
I think it is the biggest car. Well, boy, what a change, right? In the year, we go to Daytona, win the 24-hour for the second year in a row, and everybody's out having dinner, everybody's hanging out, and who was to think that 2 months later, a month later, whatever, that it all comes crashing down.
Yeah.
It's been a tough year for everybody in racing. The pace of the races, scheduling, doing 2 races on any given weekend is hard on the crews, hard. I mean, it's just been hard. But you know, the IMSA stuff, as you said, sports cars will always, you know, that's where I started with sports car racing. So, and that's something, I mean, great events like the Sebring 12-hour or to go to Le Mans. You know, RLL is going to go to Le Mans one of these days, and we're going to do everything we can to win that race. And again, maybe that boils back to this passion I have, but these are the great races that history, that make up the history of the sport in many respects. So obviously winning Daytona was big for us. Winning Sebring a couple of years ago, we won that 2 years in a row. That was good.
Brilliant strategy.
You know, sports car racing, I mean, it's a different deal compared to IndyCar racing today or when I ran sports cars. It was pretty much you showed up, and if you were fast enough, that was great. If you weren't, you know, that's too bad. Now, of course, you have this balanced performance, which is I don't think that makes anybody happy, frankly. It's a matter of being least unhappy. But it is what it is. It's part of it. You got to make the most of it. But, you know, winning Daytona, as I said, was big. Winning any sports car race, we won at Road Atlanta as well. You know, it's just, you know, we love winning. That's what it's all about. And I love sports car racing. And as you saw, we're in the process of building a big facility, a new racing facility in Zionsville, which is just north of Indy.
Yeah.
And that, I think that building is a clear indicator of our commitment, not just to IndyCar racing, but to sports car racing and other things. And so, it was a pretty good year on the sports car side, on the BMW side, and we're happy. We're going to continue with them for next year.
Yeah, I am too. And I would like nothing more than to see you and your team go to Le Mans because I think you would be every bit the competitive proposition you are here in IMSA and IndyCar. And I think it would complete a circle. You know, that is the greatest sports car race on the planet. And I know you want that trophy on your shelf.
That would be nice. That would be nice.
But, yeah. So you know, you are the epitome of the young driver who made it to me. You know, you just had such obvious talent and charisma, and you had it. I remember just thinking, this guy's going to go somewhere when I met you. And you backed it up with performance. Even when you had problems, you dig out and come back strong. What advice, you know, you were talking, you know, you mentioned the handshake, by the way. I will tell you, my hand is still broken from Courtney. Courtney shook it, and it's like, oh, how she's about what? She's very small.
Yeah.
But I think that, what advice do you give to people like Courtney out there right now? What do you do now coming out of COVID? How do you make it work?
Well, you know, it's all about. I mean, I don't think you close yourself off to anything in the sense that you don't consider any series, you know, uninteresting to you. I mean, I think the more you learn, the more different cars you run, you race, the more you learn, and oftentimes what you learn in one, you can apply to another. You know, when I came back from Europe in 1979 to come back, and I was running Can-Am, and I decided I thought I should go to Daytona, meet people, because, you know, I thought being involved in sports car racing would be interesting, which I did. And next thing you know, I'm racing the Apple Computer 935 Porsche. Of course, we win Daytona 24 Hours in '81 with Brian Redmond and Bob Gerritsen. And, you know, I just think you have to be open to everything. But more importantly, I think you have to go out there and you have to press the flesh. You got to meet people. You've got to, you know, just sending a letter doesn't do it. You've got to meet people. And fortunately, any young race car driver, for the most part, every race they go to, everybody that counts is there. So It's not like you're having to fly all over the place to meet people. You just walk through the paddock area and introduce yourself. And it's all about that attitude. It's all about doing whatever it takes to get to where you want to go. And as I say, when you meet people, you quickly find out, you quickly see who has those traits and who doesn't.
That's right. We probably should send every young race driver one of those grip master things to get.
Yeah, there you go. rubber ball works too.
Yeah, the rubber ball works
right?
too. Yeah, and I want to bring it home here. We're gonna be out of time here. You have a talented racing driver as a son, and you've just become a grandfather. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. It's number 5. Hey,
Yeah.
I've got 4 others, but yeah, that was I'm so happy for Courtney, and of course happy for Graham as well. I think the big thing now is this and it's a girl, Harlan, which is I think a great name, but is that she can be a drag racer or a IndyCar racer? I don't know.
That's a good question.
I'm sure John Force is buying her all kinds of little mini mini drag racers and all that other stuff. So I don't know. That's going to be an interesting upbringing for her. But no, it's it's obviously flattering when your children follow your footsteps. It's nerve-wracking as hell, I can tell you that. But no, I'm very proud of Graham, proud of Courtney. Just a great couple. And so lots of enthusiasm for what the future is going to bring for those two.
Absolutely, and I think that you are one of the people that's helped create the future for the sport by your leadership and your commitment to young people coming into the sport. And I particularly appreciate that about you, Bobby. And it's been an honor and a privilege to know you all these years. You remain an inspiration to me.
No, I can say the same. It's been
so. And thank you for joining us too. I really appreciate taking the time. I know you're busy, and thank you for joining us on Online Race Industry Week. Our friends at EPARTRADE really appreciate it. They were excited when you said yes, and as I was.
Good.
We were, and we still are. And I was lucky enough because we do a little rehearsal with every single speaker to make sure things goes well. I did a little rehearsal with Bobby, and I was in his office with all the cool pictures on the back and the trophy, and it was a treat. And this is another example of racers. Bobby said, I'm busy that day, but what about Friday morning, the Friday of Thanksgiving, up a.m., 8 a.m., no problem, he's up and ready, working, and that's what racers are. 24/7, we're ready to go. And that's also another indication and shows that, on the simple things, that's where all the difference is made. It starts right there. And congratulations for everything you achieved in your career. I'm a big fan, and Le Mans, I hope you win Le Mans. From a French man, I'll be delighted.
I'll probably be hiring you for a translator, Francis.
Well, here's the truth: is when I'm here, they call me the French guy, but when I go back to France, they call me the American. So I'm a better translator there.
There you go.
Well, I just want to be there when you win Le Mans. I think it's inevitable, Bobby. So I'll be there.
All right. Sounds good.
Registering on EPARTRADE is easy. Fill out your name, email, phone number, and create a secure password. Next, select your business type. Choose supplier if you're looking to display products or services and connect with buyers. Choose racing business if you're looking to find new parts and connect with suppliers. Choose race team if you own or are a member of a professional racing team. Begin typing your company name. We most likely already have your company in our database, which you can select from the drop-down. Then, enter your job title. Choose Claim Company if you'll be editing your company profile. Other members of your company can choose Join Company if they'd like to use EPARTRADE as well. You can view and agree to our terms of use here. If you'd like to receive our weekly newsletter, choose Accept. Click Register Now, and your registration will be submitted for approval. You'll need to confirm your email once it goes through. To keep our platform industry only, you'll be approved shortly after. If we require additional proof of business, we'll reach out. Welcome to EPARTRADE.